right, tonight we set sail across a midnight sea, under skies thick with stars and the kind of clouds that look like they're plotting against you. The sail snaps in the wind, and you're perched on the dragon-headed prow of a longship that smells of salt smoke and secrets. Below you, the ocean stretches out like an endless ink spill, cold, merciless, and hungry. You're a Viking sailor now, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this voyage. Not because you'll get hacked to pieces by a rival clan, though, let's be honest, that is always on the table. But more likely, because the sheer boredom between raids might just dissolve your brain. Before we start carving runes into driftwood, just to pass the time, a quick call to action. Subscribe to this channel before you drift off to sleep, like a true Viking would, if he had Wi-Fi and low standards. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments, because if you're listening to Viking history at 3 a.m. in a Waffle House parking lot, we need to know. Now go ahead and kill the overhead light. Maybe throw a blanket over your shoulders, or crack the window just a bit to let in that perfectly spooky breeze. It's story time. You wedge yourself into the damp nose of the longship, where the dragon head juts forward like it's daring the sea to misbehave. This is the spot the bravest sit, or the dumbest, depending on who you ask. Either way, your boots are soaked, your fingers numb, and the salty spray hits your face with the subtlety of a slap from Thor himself. Storms out here aren't the polite kind. They don't knock first. They crash into your world with glee, tossing the ship like a bath toy. You hang on to the carved railing, wondering if that shadow in the distance is a rogue wave, a sea serpent, or your own hallucination. Historians still argue whether Viking sailors truly believed in sea monsters, or just described rough seas in poetic pants, wetting terms. Still, you feel watched. Every gust of wind seems to whisper your name wrong. The ship groans like it's having second thoughts. You're not even sure why you volunteered for this leg of the journey. Was it the promise of gold glory? Or maybe just to escape goat duty back home? The rest of the crew huddles behind you, their cloaks soaked their eyes, vacant. You share a look with the guy next to you. Sven? Maybe. Could also be Ulf. You've stopped keeping track because half the boat is named one or the other. He offers you a piece of dried fish with the same enthusiasm someone offers a wet sock. You take it. Chew. Swallow. Regret. The world out here shrinks to the size of your ship. Sky, sea, wood. Repeat. No birds. No whales, no friendly landmarks, just the rhythmic creak of timber and the occasional splash that might be water or something with too many teeth. Some say these prow statues, the snarling dragons, were meant to scare off spirits. Others think they were for aesthetics, like early Viking branding. Either way, you're clinging to this one like it's your grandma's knee. Then, lightning splits the sky in half. You flinch, expecting the gods to throw something bigger next. Your ship rocks violently, and a wave punches over the edge, baptizing everyone in ice-cold seawater. You think about that time you faked a fever to get out of harvesting barley. This is worse. Still, the storm passes. They always do. The sea calms, and you're left shaking, breathless, and soaked like a disappointed sponge. You wonder what the ancient Norse term for existential crisis was. Probably just a long sigh and a stronger mead. Above you, stars begin to crawl back into view. You spot the familiar shapes: Orion's, Belt, the Bear, the Long Axe. Navigation by starlight is a skill passed down, sailor to sailor, often with slurred instructions and too much pointing. You remember the basics. That one means turn left-ish, someone once told you. And now you sit back on the slippery planks and resume your watch from the dragon's nose. You blink slowly, counting breaths, pretending you're not imagining ghost ships just beyond the horizon. The wind is quiet for now. The sea is pretending to be gentle. But you know, it's all temporary. You're only one wave away from becoming a cautionary saga. You row. And then you row some more. At first, it's kind of novel, this synchronized dance of muscle and wood, the creak of oars in rowlocks, the splash of sea foam. But 20 minutes in your shoulders are already making quiet threats, and your palms feel like someone replaced your skin with sandpaper. Welcome to the least glamorous part of Viking adventuring, the part where you become your own outboard motor. Each longship has upwards of 30 oars. That's 30 seats filled with men who didn't think this through. You are one of them. The benches are not designed for comfort, unless your idea of a relaxing weekend includes splinters in places you didn't know could splinter. There's no backrest, no cushioning, just cold wood and colder stares from your crewmates if your rhythm gets off beat. You're trying to row in sync with Sven Ulfbjorn to your left, who keeps snorting every time a wave hits wrong. He claims it's a tactical breath, but you're 90% sure he's just bored. That, or he's testing to see how long before someone throws him overboard. Rowing is the backbone of the voyage. Without wind in the sail, it's either row or float, aimlessly, while composing sad poetry about starvation. Historians still argue whether Viking crews followed strict rowing shifts or just played it by ear and muscle cramps. Some sagas claim they rowed in 12-hour blocks. Others suggest they took turns, like a relay team of very cranky mariners. To pass the time, you count the strokes in your head. 500, 1,000, 1,500, and oh gods, please let that be land. It's not. Just a particularly enthusiastic wave pretending to be a coastline. Still, there's pride in it. Every callus becomes a badge of endurance. Your back becomes a slab of pain, and you feel strangely heroic about it. Like if you died right now, someone would carve your torso into a legend. The shipmaster occasionally shouts encouragements from the stern. Encouragement, in Viking terms, often sounds like row, or I'll feed you to the seagulls, which, to be fair, is very motivating. Then come the blisters. At first, they're tiny bubbles under your skin, little whispers of discomfort, but after a few hours, full-blown war zones. Some guys wrap their hands in strips of wool. Others tough it out, pretending not to wince. You try that thing where you stare into the horizon and pretend your soul has left your body. Eventually, someone starts singing. It's not pretty. It's barely in tune, but it's a welcome distraction. The lyrics are old coarse and probably written by a goat. Something about a troll's rear end and a drunken smith. You join in anyway. Mainstream historians agree that rowing chants were used to set pace. Fringe theories suggest the songs were also coded, containing sailing routes, warnings, or insults about rival clans disguised as lullabies. You like the idea that you might be accidentally offending someone 3 fjords away with your chorus. At one point, a crew member, let's call him Lars, the overly confident, challenges everyone to row with one hand. He's promptly smacked by the tiller when the ship veers left. No one helps him. The only sympathy he gets is a half-hearted snort from Beard Braids Bjorn in the back. Time stretches. Your arms feel like they're attached by thread. Salt crusts at the corners of your eyes, and your legs have lost all feeling. You fantasize about trading places with a seagull or a clam. Anything that doesn't require upper body strength. You glance up and notice a sail finally catching some wind. It flutters, uncertain, then stretches full. The ship lurches slightly forward on its own, and a collective sigh passes down the oars like a prayer. Rowing slows. You let your oar drag lazily in the water, pretending to be busy. Your hands are wrecked, red, raw with blisters that have their own personalities. You wonder if Viking healers ever invented something as useful as lotion. Then remember, they probably just spit on it and called it a blessing. Still, for all the pain, there's an odd sense of unity. 30 strangers becoming one beast, one pulse, one breath, one large, grumpy, sea-bound caterpillar. You think maybe, just maybe, this is what builds legends. Not battles, not gold, but the quiet, aching grind of the sea. By now, your hands are basically just angry stumps. So when the rowing slows, you do what every other sailor on the ship does when they're not rowing, puking, or being yelled at. You reach for your knife and start carving something into the ship. It starts small, a little spiral here. A rune you half remember from your grandfather's belt buckle there. And then someone beside you starts carving too. Before long, the hull becomes a patchwork of markings creeping up the benches onto the railing, even the mast, if someone gets bold enough. You pick a blank spot on the inside of the long ship's hull and begin etching a dragon. Not just any dragon. Mind you, yours has 3 heads, each one uglier than the last, and one of them is wearing what or may not be, a tiny crown. It's hard to say. The waves keep jostling your elbow. This is what Viking boredom looks like: a sea of wood shavings, 100 minor injuries, and a growing suspicion that you're being out-carved by the guy next to you. Decorating the ship wasn't just idle fun. Historians agree that Vikings believed carving runes and creatures offered protection from sea spirits. Others argue the carvings were a form of early graffiti, like leaving your mark on a floating tavern wall. Some even think these were coded messages for future travelers, though it's unclear what Bjorn was here AD would really warn you about. Then comes the gossip. Oh, yes, forget the sagas of mighty battles and death metal fjord raids. Viking sailors are Olympic-level gossipers. You learn about that time Thorstein allegedly tried to kiss a seal, or how Asgerd brought bad luck on a voyage by refusing to sacrifice a goat. The ship becomes a floating tabloid, and you lucky you are trapped in the middle of it. One sailor carves his ex-wife's name into the prow and then slices it out again, like it's some kind of exorcism. Another starts a tally mark for each day at sea, then adds a second row labeled "Times I've regretted this life." You nod in solidarity. He's on 12. Eventually, someone proposes a competition who can carve the most ridiculous creature by nightfall. You naturally carve a fish with legs and a beard. It's terrible. It looks like a sea slug in a panic. But it earns a few chuckles, and that's enough to declare moral victory. Fringe archaeologists have found long ships with elaborate carvings on both internal and external planks, some of them hidden beneath deck panels, only visible if you pulled them apart. This suggests Vikings were decorating for themselves, not just to impress sea monsters or enemy clans. A kind of therapy with sharp tools and no supervision. The ship smells like wet wood and seaweed, and blood occasionally when someone gets too enthusiastic with their whittling. You've nicked your thumb 3 times. You're pretty sure you're not even carving wood anymore, just a layer of crusted salt over wood. But something about it is calming, like doodling in the margins of your own sanity. Every curve of the dragon's wing you carve distracts you from the fact that you haven't seen land in days. Your food rations are suspiciously slimy, and the guy next to you just sneezed directly into the wind. Also, carving helps pass the time between other less charming chores, like scraping barnacles or bailing water with your helmet. Yes, that's a real thing. Viking ships leaked constantly. Your helmet might be for battle, but it's also a bucket. Multitasking medieval style. You pause to admire someone else's work. A tiny detailed horse mid-gallop, no larger than your palm. Looks like it's running away from your face, the artist says. You grunt, respectfully. The day drags on. The wind barely moves. The sail droops like a lazy flag. So you carve. You gossip. You scratch out angry letters to the gods, which will likely never be read, but feel good anyway. You swear your dragon carving winks at you. It doesn't. You need sleep. The sun finally sinks into the waves, like it too is tired of this trip. Shadows lengthen, the wind cools, and someone calls for the saga circle. This is not optional. You gather midship muscles, sore bellies, vaguely full from that thing they insisted was soup. Cloaks pulled tight, boots nudging aside ropes, and dried fish bones. You settle in among your fellow sea-weary Vikings. Someone produces a half-burned torch. It crackles weakly, casting just enough light to make everyone's faces look like they're about to announce a ghost sighting. Tonight's tale falls to Harold the Story Butcher, who, despite his nickname, insists he once sang a saga so moving that a raven cried. No one believes him, but he's got the loudest voice and the best hand gestures, so he gets to start. You brace yourself. The sagas roll out in waves, long meandering epics of blood and bravery, of forbidden love between shield maidens and berserkers, of cursed axes and wolves with glowing eyes. You know some of these by heart. Others are new, very new. Like the one about the farmer who married a whale. That's not canon. You're pretty sure someone made that up to see who would fall asleep first. Historians agree sagas were essential to Viking oral culture. They weren't just entertainment. They preserved genealogy's laws and moral lessons. But even the most scholarly experts admit that, like any good campfire tale, they were flexible. Your uncle might have fought 10 Saxons last time tonight. It's 20. Next week, 100 and a dragon. You listen half-lidded to a tale about a one-eyed warrior who defeated an ice giant using nothing but a spoon and sheer contempt. The spoon part is likely fictional, though scholars still argue whether certain sagas were based on historical figures or just elaborate metaphors for seasonal depression. Your turn comes. Of course it does. You clear your throat glance around the circle and start the saga of Ragna Shipbreaker, an unstoppable warrior, cursed to live with eternal sea legs. You embellish wildly. There's a magic wolf, a storm goddess, and a moment where Ragna defeats a rival by tickling him into submission. The crew howls with laughter. You bow like a traveling poet, which in this moment you basically are. But it's not all jokes. Some nights, the sagas hit deeper. The older men in the circle speak softly of fallen brothers, of long winters, of hunger, and hearths that no longer smoke. You don't joke during those. You listen. You feel the weight of the sea in their words. And when they finish, everyone sits in silence, as if the waves themselves are mourning. There's a shared understanding that tonight's tales may never be repeated exactly the same again, that they are living things shaped by memory, mischief, and mood. Like the sea, they shift. Then someone farts, loudly. The moment is gone. A chorus of groans, laughter, and accusations ensues. You accuse Beard Braids Bjorn, who accuses the goat there is no goat, and herald the story. Butcher tries to keep telling his saga over the ruckus, but that's part of it. The chaos, the warmth, the fact that in this cramped floating plank of misery, you have stories. Stories that fill the dark when the stars refuse to shine. Stories that make the hunger quieter and the salt sting less sharp. Eventually, one by one, your crewmates drift off to sleep, curled like question marks around coils of rope, their breath rising like steam into the cold night. You lie back, eyes on the mast, and whisper the last line of your saga under your breath. No one hears it, but you do. And maybe that's enough. It's sometime between midnight and dawn, the official Viking time for losing all feeling in your feet. when the beard games begin. You're jolted from half-sleep by someone poking you with a fishbone. You open one crusted eye to find Eric, the unreasonably cheerful, grinning at you. His beard is braided into 4 thick ropes, tied together at the ends with scraps of sail thread. He looks like a festive squid. "You're up," he says, proudly, shaking his beard, so the ends jingle with tiny fish scales. Beard round 3. Go. You sit up slowly. The deck is slick with dew, the stars flickering above like they're about to give up. Around you, the rest of the ship's night crew is either asleep, pretending to be asleep, or very awake, and very invested in the beard competition that has now somehow become tradition. With a sigh, you pull out your comb carved from walrus tusk, sharp enough to double as a weapon, and start twisting your beard into something that says seaworthy, but emotionally distant. You go with 3 braids and a center. Swirl, like a cinnamon roll that's seen some things. The origins of Viking beard contests are entirely undocumented, which means we can make this up guilt-free. Historians still argue whether such games existed, or if this isn't what happens when men go too long without meaningful tasks. You decide it's both. Tonight's judge is Thora the Red, who doesn't even have a beard, but once outbraided 4 men and a horse in a single sitting. Her criteria include originality, structural integrity, and emotional impact. You think she's kidding until she starts crying over a beard shaped like a shipwreck. The games aren't just limited to beards. Soon, someone breaks out the mussel shells and proposes a cracking contest, one hand behind the back. No tools allowed. You fail miserably and spend the next 20 minutes flicking gritty shell fragments from your hair. Then come the endurance games. Who can stay awake the longest without blinking? Who can squat without toppling as the ship rocks? Who can hold a fish in their mouth the longest without gagging? Spoiler, not you. You all laugh, loudly, hysterically even, the kind of laughter that lives close to madness. Because out here, between nowhere and more nowhere, anything to break the monotony becomes sacred. One of the older crewmen begins carving a scoreboard into a spare plank. Names and tallies, complete with insult-based nicknames. Half-Eye, Harold, Toothless, Sven, Bjorn, the Soggy. Your name, Almost Handsome. You decide to take it as a compliment. These games aren't for glory or gold. They're for sanity. You suspect deep down, everyone knows it. The sea is a vast, echoing thing that loves to press on your chest and whisper, "You are small. You are insignificant. and I am eternal. So you answer back with beard braids and mollusk duels. Fair trade. Even Thorkel, the stoic ex-berserker, who once headbutted a bear, allegedly cracks a smile when Eric accidentally ties his beard to the sail rope and gets yanked 5 feet across the deck. There's camaraderie here, a weird, salt-encrusted brotherhood. You realize you've learned more about these men during a muscle duel than in a week of rowing beside them. When the sky begins to blush pale on the eastern edge of the sea, the games wind down. Braids unravel. Shells are kicked aside. Someone finally sleeps upright against a barrel beard still tied in knots. You sit sore and smiling, watching the day rise, thinking maybe this isn't so bad. Then a seagull poops directly on your shoulder. Of course it does. Dawn comes in slow motion, the kind of pale gray light that doesn't so much brighten the sky as expose how much salt is caked into your eyebrows. You blink into it, stretch your arms with a groan, and feel every pulled muscle from yesterday's rowing marathon and last night's beard duel. Today, it's your turn on Skywatch, one of the few jobs that sounds cooler than it actually is. You scale up to the crossbeam of the sail, wedge yourself between ropes and wood, and squint at the horizon like a half-frozen meerkat. No land, no ships. No reason to believe this isn't some elaborate punishment from the gods. But you've got your own tools for the task, your eyes, your ears, and the oldest navigation system on the planet, the stars. Or, since it's morning, what's left of them. You trace the fading outline of Polaris, the North Star, your constant companion. Viking sailors were expert navigators. Mainstream historians agree. They used celestial bodies, landmarks, and even the color of the ocean to chart courses that would make modern GPS blush with envy. More fringe theories suggest they used sunstones, translucent crystals that could locate the sun's position even on overcast days. You've never held one yourself, but you like the idea. Magic rocks that lead you home. Feels right. Still, you're not navigating today. You're watching, which means you're bored again. So you listen. And there, under the creaking mast and fluttering sail, you hear it, the low, haunting song of a whale. A long, mournful note that vibrates through the wood like a slow drumbeat. Everyone on the deck stills. Heads turn. No one speaks. The sea is vast, but you're never truly alone out here. Whale songs were more than eerie background music. To Vikings, they were omens. A friendly whale song might signal smooth sailing, an abrupt silence. Though, that meant something was coming. Something big. Scholars still debate whether Norsemen revered whales as divine messengers, or just really, really big fish. Either way, you say a silent thanks to the singer below. Then someone ruins the moment. Bet it's that mermaid again mutters, Ulf clearly hoping someone will ask for details. No one does. Still talk turns to sea creatures. You hear theories ranging from krakens the size of small villages to narwhals mistaken for unicorns. One man swears he saw a woman riding a giant fish, combing her hair with a bone. You're 80% sure he was drunk at the time, or hallucinating, or both. Navigation is more than knowing which way is north. It's reading the language of waves, the rhythm of wind, the subtle shift in bird calls. You remember being taught to watch how the waves slap the hull. If they hit fast and high, you're fighting a current. If they roll gently underneath, you're in for a smoother ride. Right now, they're slapping like angry villagers. And then there's the smell. Yes, you heard that right. Experienced sailors claim you can smell land before you see it. A faint shift in the breeze. Something earthy, mossy, almost like wet stone. Right now, all you smell is sweat, fish, and regret. No land in sight. Hours pass. You hum to yourself. A song your mother sang long ago. Something about wolves and moonlight. You blend it with the whale's song, layering the two into a lullaby that makes the boredom feel less endless. Eventually, another sailor climbs up to relieve you. You climb down legs stiff and return to the deck, where a half-hearted breakfast of dried meat and what might be pickled onions awaits. You chew thoughtfully, listening again for the whale's voice. It's gone now, just the sea, just the sky, and the long breath between places. You don't want to know what's in the soup. You never want to know what's in the soup. But someone always asks anyway, and then it becomes everyone's problem. Is this fish? Asks Beard Braids Bjorn, holding up a suspiciously gray chunk with his knife. No replies, Eric. Too chewy. Might be turnip. Or seal. You chew slowly. It tastes like salt smoke and despair, with a hint of disappointment, but it's hot, and it's food. And that's what matters when you've spent 3 weeks on a glorified canoe with 30 flatulent men. Meals aboard a Viking longship are equal parts sustenance and Russian roulette. You gather around the pot, an iron cauldron suspended over a tiny controlled flame, and hope for the best. Someone stirs with a ladle that's also been used to swat seagulls, and then the ladling begins. You get a ladleful. You stare at it. You eat it. You regret it. Vikings relied heavily on preserved food, salted fish, dried meat, fermented vegetables. You're living off what can survive the sea. No fresh bread, no cold beer, and no dreams left intact. Occasionally, someone breaks out dried cheese that smells like old ambition. Once, someone produced a barrel of pickled herring. It was the most exciting day of the voyage. It also resulted in 3 cases of what Thora called explosive soul cleansing. The truth is, the soup pot is a mystery box. One time, it was surprisingly good. Too good. Which led to the unsettling question, what did we just eat? The answer remains unknown. Probably for the best. Still, the pot brings people together. You swap stories while chewing. You argue over who took the biggest scoop. You invent new insults based on texture. This tastes like soggy boots. Yeah, but with more personality. Historians still argue over the actual Viking sea diet. Some say they caught fish daily. Others say fishing was too risky on rough seas, and that most food was packed before departure. Your current theory. It's whatever didn't run away fast enough. You try to guess the contents of today's stew. Definitely some onion. Maybe. Something that used to be green. A root of some kind. And possibly regret. Strong notes of regret. Then come the weird additions. Someone always thinks they're clever and adds something for flavor. Like fermented whale oil or a chunk of mystery meat from a pouch no one's seen opened before. Once, Ulf dropped in his lucky bone for seasoning. He still swears it made the soup taste better. It didn't. It made it haunted. Despite this, the soup becomes a shared ritual, a break from the wind, the wet, and the rowing. You gather around it like moths to a mildly cursed flame. You compare spoon sizes. You trade bites like it's fine dining. And when someone spills it, oh, the wails. It's not just about the food. It's about the loss of hope. You once saw 3 grown men mourn a dropped bowl like it was a fallen brother. They even gave it a name, Brothnar. You finish your soup and stare into the empty bowl, wondering if you're full or just too emotionally exhausted to eat more. Then you pass it along, rinse it in seawater, and return to your place by the sail. There's no dessert, unless you count that dried plum someone's been hoarding for 6 days. He offers you half. You decline. You've had enough mystery for one meal. The sky darkens just a little too fast, the way it does when the gods are bored and decide to stir up some entertainment. You're mid-bite of something, pretending to be jerky when the call goes out, weapons out. You sigh, not because of the danger, but because it means it's time for sparring practice. Again. The Vikings, you see, are nothing if not enthusiastic about hitting each other in the face for fun. It's team building, apparently, like a trust fall, but with actual falling and less trust. You pull your dull blade from its sheath, a sword that's seen better days and probably better owners. It's nicked, rusted in places, and somehow always smells faintly of onions. Your sparring partner grins at you with all 4 of his remaining teeth. Fantastic. It's Sven the Slapper again. You take your positions on the deck, trying not to trip on ropes, buckets, or that one guy who always naps under the sail. A small circle forms. Bets are placed. Thora starts a chant. You try not to overthink it. Then, clang. You're off. The rules are simple. Don't die. Or rather, don't seriously injure anyone important. The blades are dulled, but the bruises are real. You dodge a swing counter with a lunge that accidentally knocks Sven into a barrel. He pops back up like a drunk seal delighted. Mainstream historians agree that Viking warriors trained regularly, even at sea. Sparring kept their reflexes sharp and broke the monotony of long voyages. Fringe theories even suggest it was a way to settle disputes without mutiny, though accidental injuries were frequent. You believe it. Bjorn still walks funny after that one practice duel last week. Everyone gets a turn. Swords, axes, even spears. Though those are discouraged after someone accidentally stabbed a water barrel and caused a leak. No one noticed for 2 hours. Today's challenge: fighting on a plank. Yes, a literal plank balanced between 2 barrels. The goal: don't fall off. The bonus goal: look cool while doing it. You step up sword in hand, stomach full of regret soup, and balance like a deer on stilts. Your opponent is Eric. He's barefoot. Why is he barefoot? Who fights barefoot on a ship? A lunatic. Or someone with excellent grip. You swing. He ducks. He swings. You block. The plank wobbles like a toddler learning to walk. Then, predictably, you fall right into a coil of rope. Everyone laughs. You do too, eventually, after you get the taste of hemp out of your mouth. It's not just about combat, it's choreography. A strange, rhythmic dance of muscle memory and creative insults. Every strike is a conversation. Every block is a sentence that says, try harder. You watch as others take their turn. Harold, the story butcher, manages to disarm Thorkel with a move so flashy it earns him a cheer and 3 salted fish as prize. Someone else tries to dual-wield axes and knocks himself unconscious. Classic. There's blood, but not too much. Sweat, definitely. And pride in bruised, bandaged heaps. Someone starts a chant again. Left plank wins. Left plank wins. You don't know why. There's no actual prize, just glory. And maybe an extra turn not bailing water tomorrow. When it's over, you collapse against a barrel chest, heaving arms tingling. Your sore scraped, and happier than you've been all voyage. Fighting practice isn't just for training. It's for remembering who you are. Warrior, sailor, storyteller, survivor. Someone offers you a swig of mead. It tastes like fermented tree bark. You grin. The stars are out now. Your muscles ache. Your sword hand throbs, and there's probably a splinter in your shin. But you're alive, and that counts. Fog creeps in like a secret, thick and damp, turning the sea into a blurry dream where nothing quite feels real. The horizon vanishes. The stars disappear. Even the sound of the waves grows muffled, like the ocean's holding its breath. That's when the stories start. Low voices close to the deck, passed between crewmates, like flasks of stolen mead. You're huddled near the mast cloak, drawn tight, pretending not to listen, but you are. Because this is the hour of the old tales, the ones they only tell when visibility drops and logic goes out with the tide. It starts with a whisper. You ever hear the one about the sea spirit that sings you to sleep and drags you under? You have, but you don't say anything. Instead, you stare into the mist and wonder if you'll hear the song. Viking sailors were as superstitious as they were stubborn. Historians widely accept that belief in sea spirits, trolls, and shapeshifters was baked into Norse culture. The ocean wasn't just a place. It was a creature, a god, a grave. And sailing across it wasn't just travel. It was a negotiation. Someone talks about the Maren, a ghostly woman who rides the backs of whales and steals your voice in your sleep. Another mentions the Draugr restless dead who drift between shipwrecks looking for new bodies to inhabit. You check your reflection in a puddle. Still you, mostly. And then there are the trolls. You used to laugh at troll stories. Now, not so much. Not after that night you saw glowing eyes in the fog and heard something knock twice beneath the hull. Everyone insisted it was just a floating log. Logs don't knock twice. Fringe theories suggest some of these stories were invented purely to keep young sailors from getting too close to the edge of the ship at night. But then again, the ship did lose a man last spring, just gone. No splash, no scream. The fog took him, they said. You weren't there, but you've seen the way older crew members pause when the mist rolls in thick and sudden. Tonight, the fog is that thick. You hear someone chanting softly, protective runes spoken under the breath, just in case. It's not about whether it works. It's about not tempting fate. You mutter 1, 2, because why not? The gods are listening. Probably. When they are not laughing. A wave slaps the hull. Everyone freezes. Then nothing. Just the wind moving softly through the rigging, like a lullaby you almost remember. And then, in a voice barely above the wind, someone tells the story of the silent ship, a vessel with no crew, no sail, just bones lashed to the oars, rowing forever. They say if you see it and speak its name, your own ship will never reach land again. You close your eyes. You don't speak. Stories in this moment are both shield and sword. They protect you from the silence and from the things you're too afraid to name. They give shape to the fog, meaning to the meaningless. Eventually, the fog thins, shapes return. The stars peek through again, like shy spectators, and with them, laughter, relief. Someone jokes that the Marin must have been busy elsewhere tonight. Someone else ties a charm to the mast just in case. You stretch, breathe, and shake the chill from your shoulders. But deep in your belly, something lingers, not fear exactly, just memory of fog, of voices, and of things that knock from underneath. The fog is gone. The stars are back, and so is your nervous energy. So naturally, you turn to magic. Not fireballs or flying swords, though that would be useful, but practical magic. The Viking kind. Runes, charms, bone tokens, and suspiciously vague rituals passed down by grandmothers who may or may not have been witches. You sit near the ship's side with a bit of whalebone in your hand, the surface smoothed by time, your knife poised and ready. Your fingers trace familiar shapes, the jagged M of Ehwaz for movement, the curling F of Fehu for wealth, the stern R of Raido for safe travel. You carve slowly, intentionally, because this isn't just busy work. This is protection. Mainstream historians widely agree the Norse believed in the power of runes, not just as a written language, but as magical symbols that influenced fate. Sailors carved them into weapons' ship beams, their own skin, Some even whispered over them, like coaxing a reluctant God to answer a prayer. You don't speak aloud. Not this time. You finish the rune and slip the bone into a pouch with others, your little arsenal of hope. There's one from your mother, a sun rune wrapped in wool. One from your brother, an antler shard etched with the symbol for courage, and a rude drawing because family, and one you made after the last storm scratched in haste, sealed with a drop of your own blood. No one says much about the charms, but you all have them. Bits of rope, driftwood teeth, even feathers tucked into helmets or under tunics. One sailor carries a necklace of walrus whiskers. Another has a chicken foot nailed to his belt. You asked once, he just smiled and said, "Keeps the ghosts confused." It's not just about superstition. It's about control. You can't stop the sea, but you can etch a line into bone and say, "This is mine." For a moment, that's enough. Then come the dice. Someone slams down a set of knuckle bones. Actual bones, probably sheep, possibly not, and declares it's time to test the god's mood. You join, of course. There are no coins here, no gold to bet, but wagers are still made. An extra ration, a turn at night. Watch the last drop of mead. You roll. The bones clatter across the plank. You win. Barely. You don't care. The thrill is in the toss. The way it feels like you're asking fate a question and waiting for the sea to answer. Fringe theories suggest these games weren't just entertainment, but part of an ancient system of divination. Did the gods speak through knuckle bones? Could fate be glimpsed in the shape of a crack, or the way a rune tumbled? Some nights it feels that way. You watch as Thorkel rolls 4 times and loses each round. On the 5th, he mutters a prayer, spits over his shoulder, and wins. Coincidence? Probably. But you all nod solemnly. The spirits have spoken. They're just moody. Later, you tie a charm to the mast. 3 knotted threads, a splinter of yew, and a carved rune. It flaps in the breeze, like a tiny flag, warding off whatever you've all been too afraid to name since the fog. This is your insurance policy, your spiritual seatbelt. Will it work? Who knows? But it feels right. And on the sea, that's more valuable than certainty. You probably shouldn't be gambling with bones from a dead man, but here you are, crouched on the deck, with 3 others, flicking polished knuckle bones across a flat plank, while trying not to think too hard about whose fingers they used to belong to. The story goes like this. Someone dug them out of the sand after a raid. Others say they came from a cursed burial mound. You personally suspect they're just sheep bones rubbed with ash to make them look haunted. Still, you keep that theory to yourself. No one likes a skeptic in the middle of a midnight gamble. Viking games of chance weren't just popular, they were practically sacred. Historians agree that Norsemen saw gambling as a way to let fate speak. Not unlike casting runes, rolling knuckle bones could settle disputes, choose leaders, or determine who got the last fish head at dinner. You are currently betting on who takes night watch. It's serious business. You flick your bone again. It bounces, clinks, lands sideways, neither winning nor losing. A draw. You mutter a curse and lean back, watching as Thora the Red makes her move. She's terrifyingly good at this. She once won a cloak, a comb, and someone's actual dignity in a single round. The game continues as the ship rocks gently. The sounds are oddly soothing. Bones tapping wood, the murmur of bets, a few groans of loss. One sailor insists on narrating every throw in a dramatic whisper, as though you're all participants in some epic saga of fate and elbows. Someone rolls a perfect score. The group freezes, then cheers. It's Ulf. Again. He raises his arms like a champion, basking in the glory of winning what amounts to the privilege of not cleaning fish guts tomorrow. He dedicates the win to the sea spirits and his grandmother's soup recipe. Both are equally feared. Fringe theories suggest that the Vikings used human bones specifically for luck, or that some believed bones from fallen warriors carried residual power. Whether true or not, you're not about to ask where today's knuckle bones came from, especially when one of them looks oddly finger-shaped. A seagull lands nearby, watches, judges, then steals one of the bones and flaps away into the sky like some sort of avian deity of chaos. The game dissolves into chaos as sailors throw curses, boots, and the last of the onion peels after it. The loss of a bone is serious. Replacements must be carved blessed or borrowed from another set. Someone suggests using fish bones. Another offers his own tooth. You hope he's joking. He is not. Eventually, the game ends. Bones are collected, tucked into pouches, kissed, or whispered to. You do none of that. You just sit back, arms crossed, feeling strangely at peace, because even here, in this strange floating world, you've had a moment of normalcy. A game, a laugh, a distraction. You look out over the dark sea. It stretches on, but so do you. The wind finally shifts in your favor, which is exactly the cue for the sail to tear itself halfway in two. there's a moment of silence. Then Thorkel shouts something that might be a curse or a prayer, and everyone scrambles into action. You toss aside your soup bowl, half full tragically, and join the chaos. Sail repair is less a job and more a frantic group therapy session involving rope burns and loud opinions. You grab a needle the size of a dagger and a coil of waxed thread that's seen too many battles with both canvas and ego. Time to patch the giant sky blanket that keeps your ship from becoming a very long, very damp coffin. You wedge yourself near the tear and start stitching. It's slow work. The fabric is thick, rough, and soaked in salt water and sweat. Your fingers go numb, your knees protest. Someone behind you is humming a funeral dirge. You hope it's not foreshadowing. But this isn't your first rip. Mainstream historians agree that Viking sailors were responsible for all aspects of ship maintenance while at sea. Mending sails, caulking leaks, and reinforcing beams weren't just chores, they were survival. A torn sail in open waters meant a stalled ship. A stalled ship meant hunger. Hunger meant bad poetry at mealtimes. No one wants that. You glance at your handiwork and nod. It's lumpy, but it'll hold. Probably. As you work, the conversation drifts, as it always does, into gossip. You hear that Ulf might actually be part sea troll, based on how he sleeps with his eyes open. Someone claims Thora was once engaged to a ghost. Someone else insists that Harold's beard is fake. You don't believe that one, but it's fun to imagine. The conversation turns to land rumors. Bjorn says he heard from a merchant that beyond the western sea lies a land where the trees bleed gold and cows have 6 legs. You all laugh, but not too loudly. There's a tiny, traitorous part of you that wants it to be true. As the sail is patched, you turn your attention to your tunic. It's been sliced open from the last sparring match and is now doing its best impression of a fashion-forward potato sack. You pull out your needle again and get to work. Sewing isn't glamorous, but it's oddly meditative. The rhythm of the stitch, the tug of the thread, the way it gives your hands purpose when your mind threatens to drift into darker waters. Some of the older sailors embroider little charms into their sleeves, protective knots, spirals, runes. You do the same. Just a simple circle. Complete. Unbroken. Scholars still debate whether these stitched symbols were purely decorative or magical in purpose. You don't care. It gives you peace. That's enough. Once the sail is up again, flapping properly and billowing like a proud chest, you all cheer. Briefly. Then you slump into a coil of rope, arms, aching thread caught in your hair. your reward. A fresh rumor. Someone claims to have seen land far off this morning. No one else did. But it's enough to reignite a flicker of hope. You mentally promise to fix your boots next, maybe even your cloak, which has so many holes, it technically qualifies as air. The sun dips again, and as night falls, you lie back against the mast, surrounded by patched sails, fixed seams, and a dozen whispered lies. You feel oddly held together, like the ship, like the crew, like yourself. For now. The singing starts off-key, as it always does. It begins with one voice, usually Eric, because of course, it's Eric howling out a verse so flat it could double as a cutting board. Then comes the second voice, then a third, and before you know it, the deck is echoing with a chorus of half-drunk Viking sailors belting out something about goat's ale and the anatomy of a particularly unfortunate troll. You join in, not because it sounds good. It doesn't. But because in the middle of the sea, under a sky smeared with stars and seagull droppings, it feels right. Singing keeps you warm when the wind doesn't. It keeps you sane when the horizon mocks you. It fills the quiet with something human. Historians agree that Viking sailors sang often work songs while rowing battle chants before raids and drinking songs pretty much whenever they could get away with it. These weren't polished choir boy tunes. They were raw, rhythmic, and filled with references that probably shouldn't be repeated in polite company. You shout the next line. You don't know what it means. Nobody does. But you sing it with conviction. Then the harmonies start. And by harmonies, you mean three guys trying to out-bellow each other in different keys, while Beard Braids Bjorn taps out a beat on an empty water barrel. It's less music, more ritualistic yelling with enthusiasm. Somewhere in the chaos, you swear someone is harmonizing with a belch. There are favorites, of course. Songs passed down from ship to ship, some about legendary raids, others about love, and more than a few about food. One recurring theme: missing land, bread, baths, socks that don't smell like despair. Tonight's top request is the Ballad of Gudrun's Left Boot, a surprisingly emotional saga about a woman who lost her footwear in a storm and vowed vengeance against the entire Atlantic Ocean. It's ridiculous. It's beautiful. You tear up a little. You blame the wind. Fringe theories even suggest that some Viking songs were coded maps or contained navigational tips disguised as rhymes. You try to listen for clues, but most of what you hear is something about turning left at the seagull that screams like grandma. probably not reliable. At one point, a seagull does scream. Everyone cheers. Even Thorkel, who's usually too busy sharpening something to participate, hums along. You catch him, mouthing the lyrics under his breath. Eyes closed, like he's somewhere else. Maybe remembering a song sung by firelight long ago, when his beard was less gray, and his knees didn't make that sound every time he stood up. You finish the song, breathless laughing, and mildly hoarse. Someone suggests another. Someone else threatens to sing solo. You collectively vote him down. Then the quiet returns. Not uncomfortable silence, but the warm kind. The kind that says, we are here, still, together. You lie back, your voice still buzzing in your chest, your ears ringing. You feel the hum of the ship, the gentle rise and fall, the comfort of shared noise now fading into calm. You don't remember the last time you sang this freely. You suspect none of you do. That's part of the charm. You close your eyes, and just before sleep takes you, someone whispers the first line of another tune. You groan, but you smile. You've been staring at the sea for so long now that it's starting to look back. There's a moment in every voyage, somewhere between the third bowl of mystery stew and the seventh verse of Gudrun's left boot, when the motion of the ship stops feeling like travel and starts feeling like penance. This is that moment. Your body has entered a quiet mutiny. Your legs ache. Your back is a twisted metaphor for poor decisions, and your stomach keeps playing a dangerous guessing game with whatever you just ate. You lean over the side of the ship and stare into the waves, which stare right back cold and unbothered. You feel a lurch in your gut. Not seasickness exactly. It's worse. It's soul sickness. Don't fight it, says a voice behind you. Probably. Eirik again. It's just your spirit trying to leave your body. Happens to everyone. You nod solemnly. Then vomit over the side. The sea claims its due. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve and slump down onto the deck, letting the planks press their rough comfort into your spine. The sky above spins lazily, like the gods got into the mead early. You close your eyes. You breathe. Viking sailors didn't talk much about homesickness, but it was there in the quiet, in the songs, in the way some men whispered to carved charms at night. Historians agree that long voyages took a toll on the body and mind. Fringe theories even suggest certain sagas were composed as a form of therapy, a way to process grief, regret, and the smell of 40 men who haven't bathed in 3 weeks. You lie there, and let it wash over you. The ache, the longing, the vague wish that you were anywhere else. A farmhouse, a forest, even a battlefield. At least there, the cause of your suffering is obvious. Thora sits down beside you and passes a skin of something sharp and terrible. You take a swig. It tastes like punishment. You hand it back. Neither of you speaks. Eventually, someone walks by singing. It's off-key, of course, but earnest. It helps. You hum along just a little. You think about your mother's bread, your brother's terrible jokes, the way the snow used to crunch underfoot on early morning walks. You think about the girl who used to braid her hair the way you now braid your beard just to pass the time. The ship sways, and with it, your thoughts drift. You wonder if any of this matters, if the raids and the rowing and the endless sea stories are building toward something, or if you're just a floating footnote in someone else's saga. Deep thoughts, Thora says without looking. You grunt. Too much stew. Liar. Fair enough. She stands, offers you a hand. You take it. Let her pull you to your feet, joints creaking, like shipwood. You steady yourself, adjust your cloak, and pretend the wave of emotion never happened. That's how it goes. You grieve in silence, heal in motion, and then yell at a seagull just to feel alive again. You're not sure how much longer this voyage will last. You're not sure what's waiting at the next shore. But for now, you've got a ship. You've got a sky. And if you squint hard enough, you swear the sea looks almost friendly. You're half dozing when the cry goes up. Land. It hits your ears like thunder. Not the distant rumble kind, but the someone just slammed a barrel next to your head kind. You jolt upright, nearly tripping over a sleeping Bjorn, and scramble to the ship's edge. There it is, faint, blurred by mist, but definitely undeniably land. At first, you don't believe it. You squint, rub your eyes, blink a few times to make sure it's not another hallucination conjured by too many songs and not enough nutrition. But no, there it is. A sloping hill, jagged rocks, something green. Trees, maybe, or moss, or very determined seaweed. You want to cry. You want to laugh. Mostly, you just want to stop smelling like brine and regret. Everyone rushes to the prow. Shouts erupt. Some crew start grabbing their weapons out of habit or optimism. Others pray. Thorkel kisses his knuckle bones. Eric does a celebratory jig so violently he pulls a muscle and has to sit down again. You stand at the edge and breathe in hard. Salt. damp earth, smoke. Possibly, civilization might be near, or at least something flammable. It's not home, but it's somewhere. And after what feels like months of sky, sea, and soup, somewhere is enough. The closer you get, the quieter things become. Voices fade, feet still. The longship slices through the waves with a kind of reverence. Now the creak of wood and flap of sail, the only sounds. You tighten your grip on the rail. Historians believe the first sighting of land on Viking voyages was an almost sacred moment. There are accounts of warriors falling to their knees in thanks of chieftains pouring mead into the sea as offering. You consider offering your left boot. It smells like it wants to be set free anyway. As the coast comes into clearer view, excitement bubbles. Is it friendly? Is it inhabited? Is there food? Is there bread? You're close enough now to see birds swirling overhead, calling out in that shrill, judgmental tone only seabirds seem to master. You wave back at them, because why not? You've come unmoored from logic weeks ago. Then someone beside you whispers, "It's not supposed to be there." You turn. It's an old sailor. Eyes narrowed, face like driftwood. He's staring hard at the coastline, frowning like it owes him money. "What do you mean?" you ask. He just shakes his head. Land moves. Or we do. Either way, that's not on any map, I know. You don't know whether to feel thrilled or deeply unnerved. But you do know this, wherever you are, whatever this is. You're there. The voyage is ending or beginning again in a different way. The ship nudges the shallows. Anchors drop. The hull groans like it's sighing with relief. You grip your pack, your sword, and a scrap of sailcloth someone gave you for luck. The air smells different here. Richer, deeper, full of unknown things. You step onto land like it might vanish beneath your feet. It doesn't. The ground is solid, real, damp with possibility. Behind you, the ship bobs in place, its dragon head watching silently as if saying, "Don't get too comfortable. We sail again soon." You take one more deep breath. Look to the sky. You made it. You survived. Barely. And now the sea fades behind you. The ship, once your whole world, shrinks into the distance. Its sail, just a pale flicker against the horizon. Your feet sink slightly into the soft earth, unfamiliar and strange. The wind no longer carries salt, but the gentle, earthy breath of land, of soil, of stone, of growth. The ache in your bones eases. The tension behind your eyes softens. You're not rowing anymore. You're not shouting, not carving, not casting bones, or braiding beards, or singing off-key with 30 half-mad sailors. You're still. The stars blink awake above the trees. The fire crackles beside you. The night air wraps around your shoulders like a long-lost cloak. You don't need to watch for sea monsters or fog spirits here, not tonight. You think of all the miles behind you, the laughter, the sickness, the stories, the bruises, and the bread songs, and the stew that may or may not have been sentient. And you smile, because even though the journey was long, even though it was hard, you went. You dared. You drifted across a world that wanted to swallow you, and you came out singing. And now, dear sailor, it's time to rest. Close your eyes. Let the waves still. Let the oars fall silent. Let the wind carry you to dreams where no storms reach, no sails tear, and no soup is ever suspicious. You're home for now.